All right, affiliate marketing. So
Okay.
this is I was at a party yesterday with some influencers, and this was the big topic because they don't think affiliate marketing is an ad. So these are where we've got the complexity.
So like when they're getting paid a commission.
Yeah,
correct?
exactly.
It's much more than an ad because you've become a sales representative.
A lot of these creators, they have it all in all their videos and they're all integrated there, but they never talk about that specific product in the video.
Yeah.
So that's where the ad's at, but the affiliate link isn't a link, and it's not advertising. It's just, here's where it's at. Or is it advertising?
It is advertising.
It's
an ad in the description box.
In this episode, we talk with Rupa Shah. Rupa is the founder and director of #Ad Consulting, a London firm that provides training on advertising rules with social media and influencer marketing. Prior to founding #Ads, Rupa worked for the UK Advertising Standards Authority for 13 years.
This is Creative Disruption, the intersection where entertainment, data, and creativity meet. Here's your hosts, Ricky Ray Butler and Derral.
Welcome back to the Creative Disruption Podcast, where we're talking with people that are disrupting the industry and topics that are disrupting the industry. And I'm joined by my friend, Ricky Ray Butler. How you doing, Ricky?
I'm doing fantastic.
So, Ricky, I gotta ask a couple of questions because I'm always curious.
Don't put me on the spot.
Why not?
Okay. What are you curious about?
Okay. The beard. No, I'm just joking. I'm always curious about the beard, for sure. No, but like your industry and what you do, you deal with a lot of brands and you deal with a lot of creators. Do you deal with a lot of government? Do you get government oversight, regulation, anything like that?
So no, we don't deal with a lot of government because we're very compliant in everything that we do.
Compliant.
No, really what it comes down to.
No, when you first started, come on.
I have, like, our COO is our head of legal.
Okay, but
so
let's stop.
No.
Okay. When you first started, like you didn't have a COO that was over legal.
Yeah.
Like getting into the space. Like
So what usually happened is there were a couple of the earlier brands that ended up, getting the hot water and breaking some regulations. And back then, like over a decade ago, like it was a really gray area.
Yeah.
And so you'd usually go to a website and like read the website.
Yeah.
And it used to be written, like this was specifically the FTC.
Yeah.
It used to be written specifically for blogs and there wasn't anything about video creators. And so we would like look at what they created for blogs and try to figure out how to translate that over to video creators. And then a couple years after that, a couple of different brands got into hot water, and that basically was an opportunity for everyone else to understand, okay, this is the standard that needs to be followed. And as a company, we were always extra,
compliant
and aggressive on making sure
it's
it
interesting
wasn't going to become an issue.
For how fast the digital market space has grown, it always seems to me that, the last one at the race, probably the most important one of the race is the government. The government coming in and regulating because they're trying to figure out what it is, and they don't really quite know yet.
And sometimes
lawmakers make some really bad decisions.
There's
on
sometimes knee-jerk reactions.
Exactly.
And so you have like the controversial stuff around COPA, the controversial stuff.
Don't get me going on that.
Yeah, around a lot of different things that have happened in the last couple of years. But as I mentioned earlier, when you cut me off,
I always cut you off, Ricky.
In our company, we take this very seriously. So our head of operations is, a lawyer and who is also our head of legal. And they're always just making sure we're on top of everything because it's become very complicated and there's different laws in different countries. And being that we do a lot of global content, we need to know what's happening at the FTC, what's happening at the ASA, and also what's happening in Italy or in Japan as well.
Well, and I find it fascinating because, this even though the media industry, it has some age to it, but it's always evolving. And as new platforms and things come online, it's really interesting to see how regulation does change.
Yeah, and it's different than TV. Like we talked about this earlier, online with influencers and video creators, it's in the US, it's FTC, in the UK, ASA.
Yeah.
When it comes to television, it's the FCC.
Yeah.
And so both, government, what would you call them? departments,
agencies,
agencies,
Mhm.
they do things differently.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see if the two worlds that are already colliding, the influencer and the TV world, if they end up having the same regulations.
I think we should take this a step further and introduce our guest, because
Absolutely.
this will definitely be an interesting thing
Yes.
for a conversation.
So we are very lucky to have Rupa Shah join us today. She is the CEO of #Ad Consulting.
There we go.
And she formerly worked at the ASA here in England.
I actually like the name of your business, though. It's
Oh,
like
#Ad Consulting. Like it's like you were lucky.
Ad
You were lucky. You're the first
Consulting.
one to do it.
Yeah.
No, it's really
I'm hanging
smart.
on to that website. I'm hanging on to those URLs. No one's getting those. Yeah.
So, first of all, before we get into this discussion,
oh yeah, we gotta have some background.
and we'll probably have a little bit of debate.
I see that
maybe.
one coming. I
Well,
see that coming.
Probably between us.
Yeah.
You know, we have a very dysfunctional
I don't know
relationship.
what this relationship is at times. I'm trying to figure it out.
Yeah,
You
I'm going to
crack on.
counseling over it. But Rupa, tell us like how you got started and what inspired you to start #Ad Consulting.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it slightly. I worked at the ASA, that's the Advertising Standards Authority here in the UK, for over a decade. It was a long time. So when I started there, the ASA didn't even look at internet ads. They'd just taken on responsibility for broadcast, because similarly to the US, there were actually two different government agencies, looking at these types of things. It was really disjointed and confusing. The ASA then took on TV ads, and that's around about the time that I joined. So they were building up and they needed more staff. My background is law, so I studied law at university, and it just kind of made sense. It's the kind of thing that I wanted to do. I worked in investigations first, which is great.
Oh, dear.
Dealing with complainants. So I say great, but kind of also tearing your hair out.
You
because
send
there
an
was some-
official letter. Let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah. But we had some of the weird complaints, and that was, so it was fun times dealing with all of that, but it wasn't influencer stuff at this point. Obviously, it wasn't happening. But I worked my way through the company, did some advice, and finally ended up in compliance, which is kind of, when you get the big guns out and you are making sure these brands start to comply. They're not going to ignore those ASA rulings. They really need to do what they've got to do.
How long were you in compliance for?
About 5 years, I think.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So half the time.
Yeah,
Wow.
pretty much half my time there. And I think in the last 2 years, so I was there until about 2017, influencer marketing was starting to pick up. But the problem was I was attending conferences like VidCon on behalf of the ASA. And then I was getting questions, how do we comply? What are we supposed to do? Where do we put our disclosures? And it was just me surrounded by people who really needed, brands, agencies, all of the industry. They needed to know what to do, and the guidance wasn't there. And I actually think in the US, the FTC are ahead of the game slightly here. There was some guidance.
Not too much ahead of the game, but
Yeah.
The guidance is there. I'm not sure everyone was necessarily complying with it, but
Yeah.
we didn't really have that. So we were catching up, and I was starting to help with the guidance. And it just got to a point where I thought,
I would say the ASA got more defined faster.
yeah. It's a short space of time, and suddenly they came out with some good stuff. And it's actually their sister body, CAP, who are the ones that produce all of the guidance. They work with the industry. So compliance sits within CAP, and I was starting to write this guidance and thought, I'm starting to hand this over to brands and agencies. Actually, I could be doing this for myself. There's an area here
ding,
where
ding, 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 ding.
the light bulb moment, right?
Without all the red tape.
You're like, hey,
Yeah.
hey, this is gonna be great.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was that moment, and I thought, this is picking up influencer marketing. This is where it's going. So, ditched the ASA and started up #Ad Consulting, where it's going well now. I'm producing that advice direct to the brands and agencies.
That's so great.
I think that is so needed, and it's a good thing that you're doing. And because I think and again, I don't know the percentage, but there's still a high percentage that are not being compliant.
Yeah.
We talked about
Earlier,
we talked about some super brands that are not being
Yeah.
compliant, which that's going to be something that's going to be painful later.
I think everything's going to come to a head, but I think the reality is this: it was the wild, wild west.
Mhm.
It's online. You can do whatever you want, say whatever you want. You can do anything from there. and now it's being regulated, right? I mean, that's where it's at.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
I'm interested from more the creator side. I know Ricky's more interested on the brand side.
Oh, both sides, because
But I
the
know-
creators don't do it, the brand's in trouble, and vice versa.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I look at it is there is a dual standard that I see because of different agencies. Now, you know, maybe here in the UK is different than the United States, which it is, right?
Yeah.
But this is now global. I mean, you have to be aware of the global implications
Mhm.
Yeah.
of you know, said brand deal, right?
Yeah, yeah. Well, one of the questions I get asked a lot is, well, you know, we're targeting UK consumers and the influencers in the UK, so it's just UK rules, right? And it's never that simple, because what are the chances that this influencer, maybe, you know, 10,000, 20 higher, has only got people in the UK that are looking at this, or
Yeah.
you know, that product can only bought if it's being bought elsewhere, and there's people, you know, in other territories, other countries that are looking at this thinking, oh yeah, I know, you know, I like that dress, I can buy that here. Well, then, you know, there are rules in those countries that need to be applied too. So
Sure.
this is one of the things that I think it's the education part of this. Like, brands need to know.
Most creators in the UK have a much bigger audience in the US. So have you, like when you're at the ASA, did you guys ever have situations where you had to send letters or messages to US companies saying, hey, you're advertising in our country and you're breaking the rules?
Yeah, it happens. I mean, you have to do it for Europe as well. So Europe works better because the regulatory agencies across
Right.
Europe are, you know, conjoined, and you know, they've got these good relationships where they speak to each other. But sure, if that US company is targeting UK consumers, and that means, you know, those ads, you can buy that product in the UK, and potentially they're advertising UK pounds, it's going to look as if actually you are marketing to people in the UK. So yes, the ASA do have to reach out occasionally across to the US. And
Wow.
What if the product, and again, I'm not looking for a loophole,
But what if this hypothetical?
but no, because there's been times where we could only sell a product in the US, but a lot of different creators had over 60% of their audience in the UK. I mean, there were UK creators that were in the US that would have to be a part of that US campaign. Would that then just fall into the FTC regulation? Or would that be something, since UK people are still seeing it? You know,
it's more to do with if they can act on it too. So if they're seeing it, but you know, they can't buy that product, is it really targeting them? The aim, obviously, the brand is not then, because they're not making any money from it that way.
yeah.
So not necessarily. Really, it's about where the ASA have a few tests, and they talk about whether the UK consumer can purchase it, whether it's advertised in UK pounds. You know, if you go to the website, you can kind of purchase
Sure.
it. So yeah, there's a few other things that you need. So if it's just happened to be seen by the UK, but it's all about the US, then chances are, no, you might be on safe territory.
Interesting. So what are the main differences between the ASA regulations and the FTC regulations?
Do you know, there are very few big differences.
Because before, ASA was actually bolder for a while.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
but now it seems it's very similar.
Yeah, it is. And actually, what
So what are the few, can you share the
differences?
few details?
Yeah, well, I mean, the ASA have a narrower remit than the FTC. So the ASA can only look at advertising, whereas the FTC can look at things that don't necessarily class as advertising, which the ASA would say. So the ASA requires there to be some editorial control. However, this is where it gets confusing in the UK. We've got another body, the CMA, the Competition and Markets Authority. So if you take their rules and the ASA rules, pretty much exactly the same as FTC. But if you hive off just the ASA alone, it looks as if they've got there are things that are different to the FTC. So they require, as I said, this level of editorial control from the brand. So that means they expect. They don't consider it an ad, basically, if the brand haven't said in their contract, you must tag us or you must use this hashtag or something else. So, yeah, there's slightly different. But generally, you know, I say to brands that are just doing US and UK markets, they're quite in sync. So if you're complying with the FTC, you're probably complying in the UK. There was a difference, though, about the use of the word sponsored, though, because we don't love that word so much here.
So what is the
hashtag
word that you like?
sponsored is-
Advert.
It's hashtag ads.
Yeah,
It's just
hashtag ad.
There we
hashtag
go.
ads. Yeah. So I love it. Works
Yeah,
for
it's
me.
a business for me.
yeah. On so many levels, I promote hashtag ads. Yeah.
Yeah. So interesting and fascinating. So here's my beef, and this is a pretty big beef, not with you or anything like that, but here you had mainstream media, so you had television and radio, and in the U.S. it's regulated by the FCC, and there's certain compliance issues, and even you had to be very careful of what you'd say, or you could be fined pretty aggressively on it. And then the internet came, and it just really disrupted that medium,
Yeah.
And now, like, there's the brands that have been around for a very long time using the strategies and tactics that they were using on television and radio, and now they're actually putting it on the internet that way, and they think they're above the law because
Yeah.
they're compliant with the FCC.
Yeah.
And so at the end of the day, like, where is this going to come to head? Like, are we going to see major fines with these companies that think they're above the law in that, since they're, they have that much background with the FCC?
Well, I think the FTC recently, just a few days ago, talked about actually ramping up the level of sanctions. So I think they are maintaining a hold on internet influencer marketing. And they actually suggested they're going to do some kind of public consultation on this, on the views, but with a view to actually, those fines, which they talked about a lot, actually having some of these put into place now.
Yeah.
So I understand it's very similar actually here in the UK, because there are two different codes. There's the TV code, the broadcast code,
Right.
and the non-broadcast code. And they don't align. And we have the same thing where...
I thought everything was BBC here. Come on, you should be compliant.
No, I mean, just as complicated.
That was a very rude statement.
I know.
yeah.
Everyone
We
hates
love
me
our
now.
BBC.
Sorry. he makes us Americans look very arrogant and ignorant when we're over here in
There
Europe.
is some truth, but I know what my sausage roll is.
Jealousy.
That's right. That's what it is.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's kind of complicated. Like I said, we've got different agencies regulating just the same as in the US, and the rules on TV ads have kind of gone in one direction, and product placement, if this is one of the things which is, often compared, isn't it? You get the product placement on TV, which there's no big disclosure about it, really.
Right.
You don't have something flashing up every time you see that, cola bottle. But influencers are expected to, every time they hold this brand, up to the spotlight, they have to disclose. So it's just, we can see it here in the UK. There are these different rules. And it's something I've explained a few times, like, how has this happened? It's because we have these two different codes in the UK. And influencer marketing has just exploded so quickly that nothing, they're trying to kind of almost shoehorn everything into the non-broadcasting code.
Do you see like a ripple effect that's going to happen once they come regulating pretty hard on that?
Yeah.
Where do you see the next 2 years
So
with
I
regulation?
think, I mean, we talked about big brands, like really big brands that aren't complying. And I don't think that can last much longer, because consumers are getting more aware of what the rules are,
Right.
But these rules are sent out to marketers, but actually the consumers know now. They understand that they've seen a few hashtag ads, like, okay, that's what you're meant to be doing, right? So the ASA here in the UK relies on complaints, really, pretty much. You've got to get a complaint in for them to take action.
So do you monitor Reddit?
There is a monitoring part of the ASA, but they cannot monitor everything.
Yeah.
So but I know exactly what you mean. There
Well,
are
no,
certain...
I think there's a lot of
subreddits.
complaints.
Oh, exactly.
There's a lot of complaints
Yeah.
around disclosure and being compliant actually on Reddit.
Yeah. No, I mean, there are holes all over the place, and we see it everywhere. And I think the complaints will start to come in. And I think the ASA, FTC, they can't ignore these for much longer. Those warning letters, we've had them in the UK, big warning letters against big influencers, celebrities. That's not enough at the moment. And I think we can see it coming. There's more action being taken, resources are pushed that way.
I see. So just a couple things. Like I see the COPPA issue with YouTube of that huge fine. And I think that's just the beginning, and it's going to create a huge ripple effect, especially in the US.
Yeah.
And I think it's good. It's more sensitive an issue, regardless if it's kids or if it's just the adverts or whatever it may be. But it's like, you got to be compliant. You
Yeah.
have to be compliant. If not, they're going to go after you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yes, you might think, oh, I'm too small or too big or whatever it is.
Nah.
And ultimately, everyone is vulnerable for that.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no too big and there is no too small. And actually in the UK, too big, if I put myself back where I was at the ASA, big is great. Big gets publicity, and that's
Mhm.
what the regulators love, right? That's a bigger sanction than fining a company.
Exactly.
That negative publicity, it's going to hit your stock prices. It's going to hit your reputation. It's not what you need. So, I think if we see a few more big cases from regulators' perspective and consumers' perspective, that's no bad thing.
So do you think that the platforms, let's take some emerging platforms like TikTok, do you think that they're going to be more in line where it's like really easy to integrate with the integrated brand deals and stuff so that it is compliant? Is it more on the platform side that make it easier for the creators, or?
Yeah, I think they have a responsibility. I think there's this kind of touchy sort of area where platforms want to work with regulators, but equally they don't want to be the ones that are held responsible. They want to make sure they can pass that back on to the brands. But truly, the brands have a level of responsibility too. But platforms should make it easy enough for you to be able to disclose, for example.
And I know
I think creators and brands sometimes get nervous about that.
they do,
And the reason about that is not because they don't want to disclose, but a lot of different platforms try to figure out ways where they can charge money.
yeah.
And maybe make it so it dings the algorithm so it doesn't
Yeah.
perform as well. So you have to put some juice behind it.
Well,
And I think that's probably the biggest fear.
yeah,
when
the
working with
sponsored
platforms.
checkbox on YouTube's
Yeah.
been around here for a very long time, and I know creators and brands will not check it because they're like, "Is that going to affect me because of the algorithm on the reach that I'm able
I'll
to
just
get with the videos?"
over disclose within the content and in the description box
Exactly.
and just make sure that there's no problem.
there's no indication, there's no data on it that says if you put that checkbox that it's going to
But
actually.
there's not trust for the platform.
Well, I mean that comes back down to really understanding data. I mean, you
Yeah.
got to test it and try it, right?
Sure,
To
of
see-
course.
and then you can make a data-driven decision. I mean,
Yes. No, so we've seen on our end interesting patterns with stories.
yeah,
And I'm not going to give too many details on what those patterns are, but where you kind of have to mix it up in order to make it so it's the most optimal.
right.
Where you're still
So-
disclosing, but also, making it also so you're not getting dinged.
Yeah. So, Rupa,
Yeah.
you were saying that you think the platform should have some responsibility for that. Like, what are some things that if you had all control over the internet and you were the queen of the internet and you can make any decision you want, what would be the best for platforms to do?
Well, I mean, like Instagram, you have your paid partnership feature. It's pretty easy to use and it's promoted, and they actually push you if they're going to spot something that's being tagged. You get these messages now that's saying, this needs to really, really be put under the paid partnership. We can tell this is a paid partnership. So I think clear, easy functions like those that are, this is the problem though, universally accepted. We've got a problem here because
No,
hashtag
nothing's
ad
exactly.
doesn't necessarily work in Italy and it doesn't work in Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, as I say it, I can see all of these, oh God, this isn't going to work
The
in this
translations are
country.
like
I'm
way
going to try
different.
and
There's going to have to be different
offer
words.
It's a
solutions.
global
Yeah.
standard.
Yeah. And we have unfortunately, different standards of what we expect in disclosure across different countries. And it's not just the wording, it's
The platform should know the regulations in every country they're in. And they should have a local team that should be able to evolve and have that same feature. I think platforms should be fine on a local level, whether it's Japan or Italy or let's say Argentina, because they should have local teams in those different areas that should understand what the disclosure should be.
Right. And just kind of build it in.
Yeah, and
on a
so
local level.
if they create an alert, if you're tagging a brand but you're not disclosing, they should be able to,
Yeah, I agree. I think we've got something that came out in I think July of this year from the ASA. They did some consumer research and they checked to see what consumers understand from the different labels. So hashtag sponsored. And what was really interesting was consumers don't really get a lot of these disclosures. The only thing they really understood here in the UK was ad or hashtag ad. And they didn't even really seem to be that confident in these tools from the platforms. The paid partnership seemed to be going over their head, not necessarily understanding that this means advertising. So they've almost backtracked slightly here in the UK to take that harder line to say, actually, we don't think that's enough at the moment. So it's not just enough to use these tools that the platforms might be offering. So that's my hesitancy to say all platforms should be doing this, because if the regulators then turn around and say, you might be doing that, but we still think it's misleading, you've still got that problem. So here in the UK, unfortunately, consumers haven't necessarily caught up with what us in the industry understand what, an ad is. So we've got this kind of disconnect between that understanding and what influencer marketers should be doing. So, it's boiled down to just put ad or hashtag ad on everything. It doesn't matter what your platform is offering you as a tool at the moment. You still have to do this.
Well, what it comes down to is if the brand and the influencers are really aligned and the brands are empowering the content and the influencers are naturally integrating the brands into the content, having a disclosure inside the content and outside is not going to hurt.
Yeah.
If anything, it might even make the audience happier that the brand is making it so the influencers can do things that they typically couldn't do.
But let's take the evolution of this, because I think this is a fascinating part of the conversation, which is when they first came on and was building audiences, the first platform was sharing in revenue was YouTube, right? And they're like, hey, we're going to go get the ad. We're going to facilitate the deal, and we're going to give you a percentage to encourage you to create more content. Now, at the beginning, and this is like way in the beginning, the viewers were like, oh, you just sold out. You just took a brand deal. You sold out. You're a sellout. And that was the mentality, because it was so raw, so real, and they wanted it to be
I would
organic.
say that they were even more malicious if they tried hiding it.
Oh, they were, but in the beginning, that was the mentality, and the creator's like, well, I don't want to be a sellout. I'm in it for the art. I'm in it for the creation. Yeah. But the reality is, it's a business.
Sure.
And you need to be treated like a business. Yeah. And and I think we've gotten over that curve.
I think so. Yeah.
Where the audience are like, no, we're happy for you. We're excited for you. You're working with Disney or whoever.
Yeah, provided it aligns,
exactly,
right? That's it. Yeah,
exactly. And I think there's some clear expectations. But
I will say this: the creators that got the most backlash did a horrible job integrating.
Well, because and the reason why is because they go whether it's the brand telling them this is the way that it needs to be, and it's not authentic with the audience. I think that's where the breakdown is, or they feel like they need to go above and beyond to be more compliant, that it's not really integrated right.
Or they go above and beyond and they try to make it look like a commercial or that they're selling something.
Right.
And then that just doesn't make them look natural.
I applaud any creator that says, you know what, this is not on brand. I don't care how much money you're going to give me, because it's not on brand, and it will come off as a very icky thing for
100%.
For the audience.
But creators, when they're starting to grow early on, if they're looking at this as a business, they should understand, okay, I will eventually be working with brands, and this is how they're going to be involved in my content.
Yeah, and it's really persuading your audience too. It's just like, hey, we're looking to do this full time. Once we go full time, we're able to produce more content. And so it's just taking them a part of the journey, whatever it may be, so that they're happy for you that you actually got that deal. But it's all about compliance at the end of the day.
But at the end of the day, if you look at the data, the compliance is actually helping more so than hurting.
Yeah.
And I would never thought that I would ever say that there'd be a government regulation that makes content and entertainment better. But what it comes down to is when a creator or influencer is working with a brand and they give that brand a proper shout out that the brand is really helping them, the sentiment increases and goes up.
But my big beef is not. I don't think just because you're compliant, it's going to be better for the brand. But my issue is this:
compliant and smart about it.
Yeah, smart about it for sure. Because my big beef is this, and I've seen this, and you could probably attest to this a little bit. But some of our people that are making the law don't even understand the social, don't even understand digital media. I'm like listening to some of the things that are going on in some inquiries, and I'm like, who elected this guy to be over this department, because he has no clue.
Idea. Yeah, I mean,
he probably doesn't have a phone.
When I worked at the ASA, where they absolutely reveled in that view that as a regulator, you don't need to know the ins and outs of the industry. You respond to complaints. Now that's changed, and it had to change. I think there was they felt they needed to be separate from the industry, and that's right. There needs to be some separation. It's fair, but you have to understand what the industry are doing. So, for example, with the ASA and CAP, now they are they meet with the influencer marketing industry, and they have these knowledge sharing sessions. And TikTok's been in, I believe, recently, and the team are learning. They had a session with virtual influencers, learning about virtual influencers. So. Yeah, the regulators really need to know where the industry are going.
The FTC is doing much better in that area as well.
Just as the last couple of years, for sure.
Because before, and I have to be careful about this. There's been an instance where I did and my team was on a call with the FTC, and we're like, "Well, what's the issue? We actually complied, and we're pretty aggressive, and this is how we did it." And they're like, "Oh, we had another complaint," and like it was a very like random thing, but it was very biased, and nothing really came out of it. But it was just really interesting because I think early on they had a lot of like knee-jerk reactions based on just any form of complaint that they'd get.
Well, here's the thing though, is I complain when I get mail that is spam. You know what I'm saying? Not email. We're talking physical mail.
Yeah.
And then people calling me on the phone and leaving, some type of marketing thing. Like, I want that regulated. Let's get rid of that out of my life. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that feels more intrusive, doesn't it?
It is
That's the
very
thing.
much intrusive.
Or phone calls asking for your social security number.
Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yes. All the time.
What is your social security number, by the way?
I'm not going to tell you. But no, yeah, like there's other ways of, where con artists can really take advantage of you, but like, there's nothing really regulating some of those things like direct mail and not prank calls, but what do you call it?
Here's
Spam calls.
My biggest beef,
or texts now.
my biggest beef since the internet was these companies that you buy a domain name. Okay.
Yeah.
And you get this thing, it looks like a bill.
Yeah.
It looks like a bill. And they're like, hey, you're late, you're deficient, all this other stuff. And then in really teeny tiny print, it says, oh, no, this is like, we'll transfer it over from this other service, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
And I'm like, that is more fishy than anything else. And I'm like, okay, those guys need to be regulated big time.
We had, I remember being at the ASA when we had a spate of these. They were headed invoice. This is your invoice.
Exactly.
It's not, but they're relying on these companies with massive departments, and you're just going to pass it on to somebody else, and someone's going to pay this. But it's
and so that I don't know. There is a need for oversight. If not, then it is a wild, wild west, and you will have things happening that isn't really good for the brand or the viewer or the creator.
Yeah.
And so it's there. But what are some tips? I mean, where you left and you actually have your own company, like what would you advise a creator, and how would you advise a brand of how to be really compliant now with this digital landscape?
So, I mean, it starts really early on. I think they're always surprised that I say you've got to think about compliance, when you're actually choosing, as a brand, choosing your creators, because actually you want to make sure that, the past deals that they've done, have they been disclosed? So it starts really early on. And I usually recommend like at least 5 steps to that strategy. So you're, like I said, you're vetting those influencers to make sure that they understand when they need to be disclosing. So for creators, the information is out there. There's, if you're wherever you are, FTC provides great guidelines. You can find a whole variety of scenarios. CAP here in the UK have got some scenarios. It should be in the contracts. That's a really important thing. I think, I always advise that don't leave it at the bare minimum. You must comply with the rules of your country, which I see quite a lot. Go a little bit further as a brand. Creators are getting to grips that they need to read their contracts, they need to read their business agreements. So put in what you expect from them. We want you to use this particular disclosure. Use #ad or use ad. Where to put it, when to put it, how to use it. We've got some, really tricky little rulings that came out last year that say actually up to a year beyond having that contract, you need to continue to disclose. So, brands and creators should be up to date with what's going on with the rulings that are coming out.
I think there's a lot of creators that are naive. Like, let me give you a scenario.
It happens from both sides.
No, it does.
Well,
It does. But like, there are creators that actually get free product and a lot of product that are a lot of money. How do they actually disclose that?
Well, they need to disclose it the exact same way.
I know, but they don't do it.
Yeah.
They're like, oh no, it's a free. I got some shoes, I got some kicks, or I got this camera or whatever.
The brand needs to give them a letter saying, please be sure to disclose.
Well, I think that's the gray
yeah.
area. I think that's the gray area where the brands are like,
it's not a gray area though. It's an area where the FTC and the ASA have been both very bold about.
No, I know they've been bold about it, but I'm saying from the brand side and the creator side, they're like, oh no, we're not giving them any money.
Yeah, there's no contract,
product,
so we're just sending them something. Yeah,
they open it up. It's just a gift.
Yeah, if a brand invites a creator to an event, and if they pay for anything, there has to be some type of disclosure.
I was doing some consulting for a business, and we were looking at some of the cast members of that are a part of this YouTube channel, and I looked at their Instagram page, and I'm like, oh, those are brand deals, and And I approached him. He's like, "Oh, no, it's just free product." I mean, there's no such thing as free product.
Nope.
You just advertise for them because they sent you product. That is a brand deal.
Yeah,
And
there's
they're
an
like,
incentive
no,
there. Yeah,
there's it's just free stuff. You know, I feel bad for them. I want to promote their stuff.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's not how the world works.
Yeah.
So from a
Especially
brand
with
perspective,
regulation.
we actually have AI that does like a high level background check on creators that we're working with. Like,
Whoa.
yeah, no,
Okay, no. Talk about Big
Let
Brother
me finish.
here.
Let me
Big
finish. No, basically to see if there's been any DUIs or anything like
Okay,
that.
okay.
And
Big
but
Brother.
like technology can also, you can look at the content, seeing if they're disclosing or not as well.
Right.
And so when you're working with creators, it's good to be able to look at those details. Are the creators that you're working with, do they have a history of disclosing or doing things a little in the gray? But also from the influencer perspective, influencers need to be careful with the brands that they're working with. So we're talking about compliance right now, but what if there's snake oil involved?
Yeah.
Like there's a lot of tea products or acai berry pills for weight loss that get found in influencer content. And so influencers need to be careful. And I'm talking about influencers from the top music artists to reality TV stars on Instagram. They're selling really shady product. Is that something that the ASA is also regulating?
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
mean, that's probably the most harmful thing,
Yeah,
right?
it is. Yeah. I've talked about this a lot because these slimming lollipops, and we've seen, like you said, the highest level celebrities promoting these. And yes, it's covered by virtue of the non-disclosure, but also because it's misleading. There's no evidence or efficacy that these things even work. So the same rules apply. The ASA have been dealing with these things in traditional media for a long time. But, we've seen brands that are purely set up to promote through influencers. I mean, that's the whole modus operandi. They're only promoting through influencers.
Yeah.
They'll disappear, make another product, 10 days later.
If it's a startup, if it's a startup consumer product or a consumable product or supplement, the vendor or the influencer, they should ask boldly, is this FDA compliant? And then, secondly, just do your research on those products, because more established brands, there might be some issues with how they create things, but you can't hire a chemist to go and do the research for you with, like a top level super brand. No one has the time to do that. But with these like smaller companies, that's where, I think there is justification for an FTC and an ASA to make sure that there isn't snake oil that's potentially hurting people that they created within, as you said, days. And we had an experience where there was a weight loss supplement that hit us up and had really big budgets and have already worked with some of the top tier celebrities. And we literally just looked at their history and we realized nothing was compliant.
Yeah.
And then the claims are also really bold and too good to be true because, I read them over. I was like, oh, maybe I should take this. This is probably not healthy. And so we ended up not working with them.
Yeah.
And we're also very bold with them that they need to change how they're doing
And
things.
what's interesting is those companies can't advertise like through paid ads because they're not even compliant with paid ads.
It'll get flagged so fast.
That's where that little loophole is. Hey, we can get an influencer to do it.
Yeah.
Just because we can't do a paid ads because they're really scrutinizing the ad. I don't know. It's a very interesting landscape.
So in your job, with hashtag ad consulting, are you mainly focused around compliance and helping brands being compliant, or are you also helping brands, learn what they need to do to make sure they have a good product in order to launch as well?
So the strategic side of things too. It's less of my focus because, 10 years at the ASA, I'm all about compliance. It's where I am.
The more focused you are in a business,
creative. I'd like to be creative, but I kind of,
having focus is good.
So just from experience and having worked with, more and more brands now, I can probably, if it's a smaller startup perhaps, give that advice. But that's, I have niched down, and like my niche is very much the compliance side. And
so I got a really important question here though. So when you jump on social media, are you like not compliant, not compliant?
And my friends send them to me. Oh, please stop. But yeah, you can't turn it off.
Yeah.
I'll open something up. I know that's a brand deal. There's no. Just, it's the way it is. But also what's really difficult is with disclosure is actually, you can't always tell though. That's the thing, isn't it? Because you don't necessarily know there's a brand deal with everything. So, sometimes this is the thing with the ASA. They need that complaint. They need that insider information for someone to say, I know that there's a sponsorship deal here. Because I've been following this person. It's a, avid follower for the last 10 years. So that's how I know. Because otherwise, as somebody who's new to that feed or new to that channel, looking at that YouTube channel won't necessarily be able to, and the ASA can't monitor for that, because how do you know there's a sponsor deal behind it?
Exactly. Wow. There's a lot of complexities here. There really is. I mean, there's a simple approach to always stay above board. You just hashtag ads, right?
Yeah,
And you're good to go. But I think the interesting thing is, as new mediums come on and as more people are coming into the space, it will get more complicated, because when is it really a brand deal or not? And I think it's simple enough to say, if there's product or money, being transferred for any type of promotion, whether you post it or not.
Yeah. Although there are subtleties.
Let's talk about those.
Do you want to talk about?
I really
Yes.
do, because it's like we got to geek out on this.
All right, affiliate marketing. So
Okay.
this is I was at a party yesterday with some influencers, and this was the big topic, because they don't think affiliate marketing is an ad. So these are where we've got the complexity.
So like when they're getting paid a commission.
Yeah,
correct?
exactly.
It's
that.
much more than an ad, because you've become a sales representative.
We see the brands. This is where, and I have some sympathy for this. So obviously the way it works is a brand doesn't necessarily know who their affiliate content creators are, because there are the third parties that deal with this. So, but here in the UK, and the ASA are coming down hard on those brands, because they're not, those content creators aren't disclosing that these affiliate links are advertising. And the brand's like, well, we haven't even met this person. We didn't realize this person was creating this for us. And we don't like the label of ad, because we don't think it necessarily sums up the relationship. So, I disagree. And I think from the research,
They need to update their terms and services when it comes to their affiliate model.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
So if you had all control, how would you fix the issue then?
yeah, I don't know. You put me on the spot. It does need to, at the moment, the research says consumers only understand ad. So right now, you have to call that an ad. It might not be a true ad relationship, but as you said, there's a commercial, there's money being passed there.
I know YouTubers been putting in just kind of the description. Hey, these links are affiliate links. Would you get a commission from them?
Yeah.
But you're saying they need to take a step further to put a hashtag ads?
Yeah, so if that whole video
I think
is
that
full
is a
of
step
those,
further what you just said. I mean, I think the hashtag ad is like the beginning piece. Taking a step further is actually explaining that, hey, I'm getting a
Well, no, I mean, they might not even,
sales.
here's the thing though, is a lot of these creators, they don't even talk about it in the video, but the links are actually affiliate links.
Yeah.
To, whatever, it could be Amazon or, Epidemic Sound or whatever, but has nothing to do with the content itself. How do you change that?
Oh yeah. I think you kind of have to do both and say, hey, like, I'm getting paid for this. And to be honest, it's going to work in their benefit. If one of the consumers buy or one of the viewers buy the product, they're going to know, okay, well, if I'm going to buy it, I'm going to buy it here so I can benefit one of my favorite creators.
yeah, but they need to know they're doing that.
But it is
happening.
an interesting dilemma, because a lot of these creators, they have it all in all their videos and they're all integrated there, but they never talk about that specific product in the video.
Yeah.
So that's where the ad's at, but the affiliate link isn't a link, and it's not advertising. It's just, here's where it's at. Or is it advertising?
It is advertising.
It's
an
advertising.
ad in the description box.
Yeah. I see. That's where I have a hard time with it, because it could just be, hey, here's some things that I love. And here's the things that I love that made this possible. Like, I can understand that being an ad, but it's just like, here's the products that I love, that I use. Yeah. And so that would be an ad, basically.
Well,
I mean, that seems pretty great to me.
Yeah. Well, I can see how you could, I think that's very fair. To see that's very gray, but the truth is they're getting benefit out of it. And
But if it's
something
something
out of it,
but if it's something that I love and I'm not promoting it in a video,
then don't
and it is one
then
of
don't use an affiliate link.
that it's a link there.
Just share a link, then you're fine. But if you're getting paid for it, you should probably just follow the rules.
Well, I'm just saying.
I'm not saying. I know you're asking for a friend, Derral.
No, I'm asking for a friend. No, but
Derral has like several.
but here's the thing though. There is a disclosure there.
Yeah.
It says, hey, these links are affiliate links. I get a percentage, blah blah blah. But to put the hashtag ad at the very top of the fold to be compliant with that, I think is misleading because it isn't an ad in the video. It's just here's the equipment that I use, or here's some services that I love.
Yeah.
And to do that, I don't know. I just think that's a little overboard for it, but I could be wrong.
Yeah, I think there's scale. In terms of the official advice, there are scales. So if you just literally have a couple of affiliate links and, 3 out of 10 are affiliate, you wouldn't be expected to call that entire video an ad, not here in the UK. But if every single link that you give is an affiliate link, then you're moving closer to actually needing adding that title for that so that it comes up in the thumbnail. So full disclosure for.
And that's what they talk about it in the video specifically, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
but
But what I'm talking about is not in the video at all.
He's just talking about just the description box alone. Like, do you need? I mean, I guess the question is, do you need to put hashtag ad in addition to
just disclosing that it's an affiliate.
No. If you're not mentioning them in the video, then I think that's different. Then you can use your.
Just say
I'll take it.
You're okay.
I'll take it. The queen of the regulations said so.
You have just changed so many people's opinion now. No, that's great. I mean,
it's just
because I think with like if you are getting paid a commission. I know you're talking about in the video. I mean, it's good just to explain that because
100%.
In some ways, it might be even more respected than getting paid up front for it.
Right.
We do a lot of rev share with brands, and where we actually guarantee sales on a monthly basis.
That you do,
and we do that, with our AI technology that helps us. But what's interesting is, we realized that most creators would rather just get paid up front.
Yep.
And when it comes to disclosure, it makes it much more simple as well. Because if they disclose and then have like some like strange tracking link, they're gonna be like, wait. So are you getting paid and getting a commission? And it was just kind of weird. But what it came down to is sometimes it works for creators, sometimes it doesn't. And so for us, we just simplify the process, just make it a typical disclosure. And then, hopefully we profit from it.
Hopefully.
Yeah. If we pay you up front.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting dynamic for sure of seeing all the complexities of all the stuff that we're talking about here. I think the future is hopeful. I think the viewer, the consumer is getting a little bit more savvy. Where before it was just like, oh, it's on TV, it has to be true. Well, now we're really skeptical because there's people that believe in the flat earth because that's what the internet says, right?
Yeah.
But that's not the reality. I think they're getting smarter and more I can't even talk. Sophisticated. That's what I needed. That's the word I was looking for. I don't know why it took so long to come up. I need to be more sophisticated.
Yes.
But no,
I'll help you.
Thank you. Please do. But I think the consumer and the viewer is getting smarter in that realm, and they know what is a sales job versus what is real.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think they can identify now when you've got just, organic content and when those kind of sales are seeping in. And that's partly because creators are now being more open and upfront and they've seen a bit more of it.
And I just think too, because I think there's different celebrities out there, and the ones that come from traditional, they're not necessarily held to the same standards as the influencer that's coming up. And I think the hammer is going to come down. And do they go back and see every post? I mean, is that how that works? Or
so there's a sort of a limit here in the UK. It's hard to apply. So they've always said it's up to 3 months. They go back 3 months here in the UK.
That's like a little slap on the wrist, though.
Yeah,
they're not compliant for years.
And actually, if you've got, for example, somebody who doesn't post that often, happen, so the next thing you'll see on their feed is something that was 6 months ago, then actually should that really it should be included, right? Because that's what everyone's going to spot.
Right.
So there is a bit of leeway, and this is what the ASA have said. So if you're looking at a feed, they'll look, if you don't have to scroll too far, they'll look at anything that's in it. But if you're literally scroll, or, they're going to ignore those really old ones, except when it comes to this 1 year rule, which is that kind of confusing thing where you've taken that deal, it's finished, but up to 1 year afterwards, you still, if that product appears, then you got to disclose.
It's interesting. Wow. It's like, I love this industry. I love the complexity. I love the dynamics. It's just, there's a lot of moving parts, literally for people to be compliant and to really get their message out there. There's just so many little details that they need to understand. And that's where they can hire you, because like that side,
that's why I like that.
Exactly. That's that brings in the bread and butter, right? Yeah. Well, is there anything that interests you? Like, is there anything that's going on, and it doesn't need to be related to your field, but anything that's in the industry right now that you're really excited about?
Sure. So I think, I haven't gone there yet, but the world of gaming really interests me. And I can see there's, so many avenues for the commercial side and commercializing gaming. But I haven't dipped my toe into gaming yet. So that's something that kind of I will at some point. I guess I've been working predominantly with fields that I worked with when I was at the ASA. So for now, for what I'd like to do is, explore things further. We've talked about sports brands and working within the sports industry. And I'd quite like to get in there earlier and work with a few more sports clubs, teams, so that actually, because I think there is a duty of care there actually, because that your fabulous athletes and your sports stars are going to be taking these brand deals. Right. So why not get that education from your team? So I've started working with a few more teams, and that's kind of where I think works.
I don't think the average person realizes how much money is in gaming. Like, I really don't think that they see that. They think, Hollywood media, they have all this money, but it like gaming dwarfs.
Yeah.
That.
Exactly.
It's really interesting. And so maybe the hybrid for you is like gaming, but esports teams, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. I thought you were going to mention esports. Yeah, exactly. So anything, with regards to Twitch and, the big platforms that facilitate it. But I think the regulators are going to go there soon too, because it's not been touched that much. But I think they know there's a lot that where there's revenue, there's going to be non-compliance, right?
Exactly.
So on Twitch, like when it's a live stream, in a way we get even bolder, like with the disclosure, where it's like no matter what, people just know that it is a sponsored stream.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for making the time to make this happen.
No problem at all.
This is a fun, specific topic that was fun to geek out around. We
would have never covered this topic in any other way. So thank you so much for your expertise.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
And thank you all for watching this video and this podcast. Make sure you hit subscribe, like, share, whatever you need to do. But remember to share it with the people that you love. I love you, Ricky. I'm going to share it with you.
Cut.
Perfect.